Hey everyone, I'm Case Aiken. I'm one of the hosts of the Another Pass and Men of Steel podcasts, and we're doing Batman-related tie-in material over there as part of CPOV's Dark Knight Fortnight. But I also wanted to talk about a Batman video game. And I know when most people think about Batman video games, they think about the Arkham series, which is great, or they think about the classic Batman game on the NES, which is infamously difficult while at the same time graphically beautiful. Or maybe they're thinking about the abysmal Batman Forever video game that came out. There are a ton of Batman games to talk about, but one I want to bring up is a really fun one that not a lot of people really discuss anymore, and that is Batman Return of the Joker for the NES. This game from 1991 was marketed as a pseudo-sequel to the Batman 1989 adaptation video game. Except it's entirely different. Instead of being a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you happen to have some projectile weapons with limited ammo, this game is not really a Batman game per se. It's more of a Contra game or a similar style of run-and-gun game that happens to have Batman. And you might be thinking to yourself, hey, that's weird. He said run and gun, and Batman doesn't like guns. And yeah, that's true. Your only way of fighting characters is that you have a gun. That's your thing. It's quote unquote batarangs at first, and then later on you get things like a crossbow bolt or sonic weapons. It's not very clear because the power-ups are just the first letter of each of the weapon types. So if you don't have the manual, you can't really tell, and they're just kind of sprite effects anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But here's why I want to talk about it. Because it is beautiful. It's one of the last great NES games. It is gorgeous, the animation is incredible, the music's pretty good, and the gameplay is very good at being the type of game it is, even if it's really weird that the Batman license is applied to it. Because you've got driving sections, you've got flying sections, you've got running sections, but none of it really feels like Batman per se. It's just you happen to look like Batman as you go through this game. And it's this weird discordant element of an IP versus the actual quality of the game being presented that creates a strange thing to look at. But I wanted to talk about it because it was a lot of fun. It's honestly one of the best NES games ever made, but it gets overshadowed by its more famous predecessor, or people compare it to the Genesis game, which was a hasty port called Revenge of the Joker that is very bad. I mean, really bad. The graphics are somehow worse. The music is the same, but the Genesis chip is difficult to work with, so it has this very tinny quality and it's not particularly good. The mechanics are worse. Everything about it is a worse game. If you're going to play it, play the NES version. It is this lovely work that is not a good Batman representation in video games. It is just a good Batman sprite who happens to run around and use guns. And Batman doesn't use guns, but this one does. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you happen to like the Batman IP, you don't really care about being a character that feels like Batman, just cares about playing a game that looks like Batman and is good, this is a great choice for you. Again, the graphics are amazing, the sound is incredible, the mechanics of it all are fantastic. It is a bit difficult. If you get to the end of the game and have to continue at the final boss, you might as well just start over because you don't get any of the weapon power-ups that you would have picked up along the way, and unfortunately, it's damn near impossible to beat the final boss without an upgraded weapon of some kind. The basic Batarang weapon is not particularly good, so this would be a game that I would describe as NES hard. But it's really different than a lot of the Batman games. The ones that came out for the 16-bit era, aside from the terrible port that they did of this, are for the most part beat-em-up style games. There's the great Batman Returns game for Super Nintendo. There's the awkward Batman Forever game. There's the pretty good Batman Returns game for Genesis. And there's the great, well, both doubly great Batman and Robin games adapted from the animated series for Super Nintendo and Genesis. Both entirely different, but both fantastic. They're not the NES one, and I think a lot of people missed out on this game because it came right at the end of the NES's lifespan. So if you are able to check it out, you should. As far as I know, it hasn't been available on any kind of collection or streaming platform such as the Switch's NES library, but it is a lot of fun. And if you can look it up and play it any way you can, I would highly encourage you to do so, if only to see what a really quality NES run and gun game can look like when you know what the character is supposed to look like. So again, I'm Case Aiken. I'm the host of the Another Pass podcast and Men of Steel podcast. We're doing tie-in material for the Dark Knight Fortnight and talking about a ton of Batman stuff. So check out our shows as well as all the other shows on the network that are doing Batman-related material in celebration of the Batman coming out. I'm sure other people from the network have lots of warm feelings about other Batman games, and I'm looking forward to hearing about them. But I just wanted to take a minute and bring this one up because this is the one I had back in the day. So for me, it seemed like, oh yeah, this is one of the great Batman games of this era, but I never really see it being talked about. So check it out if you can. And if you do, happy gaming.